Hey there, history lover! Let's talk about one of the most epic and consequential conflicts in ancient history, the Punic Wars. If you've ever wondered how Rome went from a small Italian city-state to the dominant superpower of the Mediterranean, this is the story for you. Grab your favorite drink, maybe something strong. You'll need it for these twists and turns. And let's dive into the drama, strategy, and sheer audacity of Rome versus Carthage. First things first, what exactly were the Punic Wars? These were a series of 3 brutal conflicts fought between Rome and Carthage over control of the Western Mediterranean. Think of it as the ultimate showdown between 2 heavyweights vying for supremacy. The stakes? Trade routes, territories, and the future of an entire region. Each war had its own unique flavor, but they all shared one thing in common: bloodshed, betrayal, and moments that would make even the most dramatic Hollywood scriptwriters jealous. To understand the Punic Wars, we need to break down the rivalry between Rome and Carthage. Carthage, a wealthy maritime empire based in North Africa, was a powerhouse of trade and naval dominance. Its fleets ruled the seas, and its wealth made it a force to be reckoned with. Rome, originally a land-based power, had been expanding rapidly across Italy. But as its ambitions grew, so did its desire to control the Mediterranean, and that put it on a collision course with Carthage. The conflict boiled down to competition over resources, territory, and influence. For over a century, these 2 juggernauts clashed in battles that would reshape the ancient world. Let's start with round 1, the First Punic War. This conflict began over control of Sicily, a strategically important island coveted by both powers. Here's how it went down. At the beginning, Carthage had the clear advantage at sea. Their navy was massive and experienced, while Rome was primarily a land-based power with little naval expertise. But here's where Rome showed its grit. They didn't just give up. Instead, they built their own fleet from scratch and invented a game-changing weapon called the corvus, a boarding bridge that allowed Roman soldiers to turn naval battles into hand-to-hand combat. After years of back-and-forth fighting, Rome finally emerged victorious, forcing Carthage to cede Sicily and pay hefty reparations. It was a humiliating defeat for Carthage, but far from the end of the rivalry. Now we're getting to the good stuff, the Second Punic War, which featured one of history's greatest military geniuses, Hannibal Barca. If you've heard of anyone from the Punic Wars, chances are it's him, and for good reason. Instead of waiting for Rome to attack, Hannibal took the fight directly to them. In one of the boldest moves in military history, he marched his army, including war elephants, over the Alps into Italy. Yes, you read that right. Elephants crossing mountains. It was a logistical nightmare, but Hannibal pulled it off, catching Rome completely off guard. Once in Italy, Hannibal inflicted devastating defeats on the Romans, none more famous than the Battle of Cannae. Using clever tactics like double envelopment, he surrounded and annihilated a much larger Roman force. It was a masterpiece of strategy and one of the worst defeats Rome ever suffered. But here's the twist. Despite his brilliance, Hannibal couldn't deliver the knockout blow. Rome refused to surrender, instead adopting a Fabian strategy of avoiding direct confrontation and wearing down Carthage through attrition. Eventually, Rome counterattacked, led by Scipio Africanus, who defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in North Africa. Game over, for now. Fast forward to the Third Punic War, and things get downright tragic. By this point, Carthage had rebuilt itself and was once again thriving economically. But Rome, paranoid and vindictive, couldn't tolerate a rival, even a weakened one. Enter Cato the Elder, a Roman senator who ended every speech with the infamous phrase, Carthago delenda est. This final war was less about strategy and more about annihilation. Rome laid siege to Carthage, starving its population and razing the city to the ground. Survivors were sold into slavery, and the land was famously sown with salt to ensure nothing would grow there again. It was a brutal end to a once mighty empire and a stark reminder of Rome's ruthlessness. You might be thinking, okay, cool story, but why should I care? Well, here's why the Punic Wars matter. These wars cemented Rome's status as the dominant force in the Mediterranean. Without defeating Carthage, Rome might never have become the empire we know today. From Hannibal's daring maneuvers to Rome's persistence and adaptability, the Punic Wars offer timeless lessons in leadership, innovation, and resilience. The wars devastated countless lives, leaving scars on both societies. They remind us of the human toll of imperial ambition and the dangers of unchecked rivalry. Figures like Hannibal and Scipio Africanus remain icons of military genius, inspiring leaders, writers, and filmmakers for centuries. Even today, their stories resonate because they're about more than just battles. They're about courage, determination, and hubris. The Punic Wars weren't just a series of battles, they were a turning point in history. They transformed Rome from a regional player into a global powerhouse, reshaped the Mediterranean world, and left behind tales of heroism and tragedy that still captivate us today. So next time you hear someone mention Hannibal or Rome, remember, these weren't just names in a textbook. They were real people whose decisions and actions shaped the course of civilization. Stay curious, and maybe channel a little Hannibal-level audacity in your own life. Who knows? You might just pull off the impossible. Do you think Rome's victory was inevitable? Or could Carthage have won if circumstances were different? What lessons can modern nations learn from the Punic Wars about diplomacy and conflict resolution? Which leader from the Punic Wars do you admire more, Hannibal or Scipio Africanus, and why? Let's keep the conversation going, because history is always better when we share it together.